Greetings guys, Sage Tower Games here, and we're bringing you guys another class review video for Pathfinder 2nd edition. And this time we are looking at the Druid class. As you can tell by, I think, Lindsay, the iconic Druid from Pathfinder. Now the Druid is a staple class. It's been in Pathfinder for ages. It's been in D&D for ages. It's that nature-based caster, that kind of wilderness expert, and has been a ton of different ways to play it in the past. They've had animal companions, to wild shaping, to all sorts of other ways in between. So let's dive into the class and see how it plays in 2nd edition. So first thing, as always, we head over to our Archives of Nethys website. Again, if you guys do not use it, I suggest you highly use it or keep it available when you play. It's a great tool and a great resource for you guys to use. So, the Druid is a wisdom-based class. That doesn't change. They've always been your wisdom caster. A+ Con, which makes them a little bit more healthier than your wizards, and that makes sense. Some of their stuff requires them to be a bit more close quarters or a bit more closer than the wizards that want to be farther away. So, same thing as always, trained in nature, all the terrain and everything. The key things to note are they do have the specific anathemas or things that they're not allowed to do. I'll just increase this for you guys so you guys can properly see the screen a bit better. And what these are essentially things that druids are not allowed to do. Doing so can technically cost you your druid powers. The typical ones are always, you can't wear metal armor or metal shields, you can't teach the druidic language to non-druids, and you can't blatantly despoil nature or destroy nature. In most cases, the only one that really comes into play is the metal armor or shields. You usually have to wear leather armor until you potentially get to like dragon hide or like woodland type armor, and then you might be able to actually wear a bit more better armor. So it also says each order has their own specific one as well, which we'll go into a bit when we look at the orders or the different specializations for the Druid class. Druidic language, again, we mentioned that. We have the spells, very typical for all the spells. They are a primal spellcaster. They are not arcane, so we have their own nature spell list, similar to what they kind of had in Pathfinder 1, except now in 2e, obviously, they broke it out into specific types. So everything else, they gain sheer block, so you can kind of wear a buckler. They always have wild empathy, allowing them to talk with animals and kind of use diplomacy to work with the animals. Other things all other things are like the same thing, boosts and increase the expertise and all that. So let's hop in straight to the orders. Okay. The first one is the animal order. You have a strong connection to beasts, and you're allied with a beast companion. So this one gives you an animal companion, and you gain the heal animal order spell. And you cannot kill animals unnecessarily or just be cruel to animals for no reason. So this is if you want to go the animal companion route, which is a very popular route. We mentioned it as well, like rangers, for instance, have as animal companions. Druids have it as one of their orders. Leaf is all about nature, diplomacy. You gain the Leshy Familiar and the Goodberry spell, which is a healing spell. So this is a good one if you want to play the kind of druid that is focused on healing, focused on maybe plants, a lot of plant-based stuff, and we'll see in the feats as well. There's various feats about that. The Storm Order. This is definitely the one if you want to be like a DPS caster type class. And this is where you gain Stormborn, you gain the Tempest Surge spell. I don't really see Pollute in the Air, or air pollution being a major issue in Pathfinder or D&D in general. I don't really think in all my time of playing, air pollution has ever really been an issue, but this one we focus on like your elemental spells, obviously electric damage for instance, and kind of if you want to do damage with your spells primarily. And wild is the last order. The wild order gives you intimidation, it gives you wild shape and wild morph. Now, wild shape is the one that lets you turn into different things. Wild morph kind of gives you specific properties of kind of like a half transform. For those of you that may have been playing 1E near the end of kind of 1E, before they went on to 2E, they had released a class called the Shifter class, which was essentially the Wild Order type of druid, where you didn't wild shape into the animal fully, you kind of gain properties. So you would gain claws, or you would gain a beak or wings, and you kind of be like half humanoid, half beast, and fight that way. The class itself never really got full traction, and I think after people reviewed it, it really wasn't that great of a class, to be honest. Will they bring it back in the future? Who knows? So, looking over at the feats. Now, as always, there are tons of feats, so you can just scroll through this list, and there's quite a bunch of them. This list actually isn't that exciting of a list in terms of like really key things to pop out. I mean, you have your animal companion feats that kind of go through, and very similar to the ranger that we saw, where you kind of make your companion bigger or make your companion stronger. Your storm ones, similar things. They have abilities to increase your damage, to send damage back, like storm retribution, and so forth. You have a lot of wild shape ones that essentially they give you the ability to shape into more and more things. So like for instance, elemental shape gives you elemental forms, so you can turn into elementals, and you gain resistance 5 to fire, as an example, compared to something like plant shape, which turns you into anything that has a plant, and you can resistance 5 to poison. So you kind of see what they are kind of going with. They essentially give you more and more options, as opposed to just like, as you level up, you just gain access to everything. Which actually is pretty good, because if you look at Wild Shape level 1, you gain the Wild Shape Order spell, and we can go to the Order, the focus spells. For Wild Shape, touch on anything listed in Pest form. So one of the biggest issues in Pest form kind of gives you tiny animals, cats, insects, lizards, or rats. So what they did with Wild Shape is actually really good, because anybody who's played druids in the past, anybody who's GM'd and had druids kind of playing, you know that Wild Shape has always been kind of, well, technically, if you have seen it, you kind of can turn into it. But in this case, it's not that true. Like, you can't turn into the dragon unless you have dragon shape, which is level 12 feet. Now you could probably turn into the dragon at a low level, depending, like dragons might not be the high level at that point. But if you don't have this feat, you can't turn into them. But you may have fought a dragon and you may have been able, well, I've seen it, so I can turn into it. That's actually a pretty good change, I feel like, because that was one thing that could be overwhelming for players. And usually, the druid can sometimes in 1E, maybe for newer players, be a lot of options. But you have the animal companion, you have all your spells, you have the nature magic. There was a medicinal aspect of it in 1E, and then you had wild shape. And it was like, well, which part am I going to focus on? And if you kind of but you gain access to all of it really. So this is actually really cool that with the way they did the Druid Orders, they allowed you to basically pick one aspect and focus in on that aspect. Going back to the Druid Feats, there's similar things to how we talk about Wild Shape. There's other ones for morphing that give you extra abilities, and you have other like casting spell ones, or like the meta magic feats, and the steady spell casting. And in the captain you have true shapeshifter and kind of higher defense power that gives you level 10 spells and the like. So with all this, I also want to point out the Druid spell list as well, because the Druid spell list is a primal spell list, and we can just go through the list, and it has a lot of the classic ones, like from the arcane, like Burning Hands and those kinds, to Hydraulic Push, which is a pretty good one. One of my personal ones that I think is really good for druids and for arcane casters as well is Sudden Bolt. That is a really good spell, very powerful level 2 spell, as a classic one. And they also have access to like some of the restoration spells and the like. So with that, we'll hop back to the druid class itself, kind of looking through and just thinking about what makes the druid a druid. Well, the druid class itself has always been that spellcaster where you kind of don't want to just be the bookworm type spellcaster. You have that nature aspect to you, and you maybe want to either be something like a Leshy, or you want an animal companion, or maybe you want to turn into things. And it's a lot easier for that than to be like a polymorph type wizard perhaps, or a ranger who in 1E did have some spells, but 2E only has like a few focus spells if you really go for it. Now the druid, in my opinion, like I mentioned at the top of this video, is a staple class. I can fill a number of different roles in the party, being a caster, either for damage or for control, and for being a healer. For those of you that watched my games, my Age of Ashes campaign as a druid that also has trained in all the medic feats, so he can heal not just with Goodberry, not just with his spells, but with normal treat wounds as well, but he can still do damage with Sudden Bolt and Hydraulic Torrent and all these other like control the battlefield with Aquarius Orb and Mad Monkeys. You can do so many different things, and that's just one order. Imagine you did Animal Companion, and now you have this companion that you could like turn into yourself as well. Then you have 2 of them, or even make one super big one and really buff it up and make it crazy. So Druid is an amazing class, and I'm excited to see more of different ways that they take the Druid. I, for one, am hoping in the future that we get another core book that maybe adds 1 or 2 different options to every class, kind of like an advanced player's guide or advanced player's guide 2. So with that, what do you guys think about the Druid? Have you guys played the Druid, or do you guys have any good stories about being a Druid? Post them down in the comments below and let me know. I love hearing what you guys think about these classes. I love hearing your thoughts on them. I know this class is, like I said, it's one of the staple classes that comes in the core rulebook, so it's not hot off the presses like some of the new playtest classes, but it's still a really good class. So thank you guys for watching, and be sure to check out my YouTube channel for more Pathfinder content. Thank you.